So now we could carry on with, because all of this now is about metta, so we're going to carry on another very famous sutta, which is all about metta and letting go and moving the mind away from ill will towards positive qualities. This is the famous simile of the saw, Kakacūpamasutta, Majjhima Nikaya 21. And it's a long sutta, and it ends with the simile of the saw, comes at the very end. But in the meantime, it has a lot of nice advice on what we should be doing. So I have heard, at one time the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. Now at that time, Venerable Paguna of the top knot was mixing too closely together with the nuns, so much so that if any mendicant criticized those nuns in his presence, Paguna of the top knot got angry and upset and even instigated disciplinary proceedings. And if any mendicant criticized Paguna of the top knot in their presence, those nuns got angry and upset and even instigated disciplinary proceedings. That's how much Paguna of the top knot was mixing too closely together with the nuns. So we know what this is like, where if you mix closely with somebody and you gain a lot of affection for each other, then you get upset if other people criticize them. Yeah, this is the way it is. So it is appropriate, and especially if those people are of the opposite gender, there's kind of special dangers there, obviously. And so you want to be a bit careful. So this is kind of what's going on here. He is kind of going too far. Disciplinary proceedings, this is the proceedings found in the Vinaya, that if someone is doing something wrong, you start kind of an investigation, and maybe you ask them to be disciplined or criticized in a certain way, and so you instigate all of this sangha kamma that then leads to a lot of trouble for everyone in the sangha, because you are so a little bit too attached to those nuns, and the nuns are too attached to you, and then it becomes problematic as a consequence. So that's what this is about. So we want to be careful. We want to be neutral in the mind. We want to be able to see people for who they are. We don't want to be biased because we like someone especially. So it's not just about monks and nuns, it's about anyone really in life. Yeah, sometimes you are too attached to anybody. It doesn't have to be anyone of the opposite gender. It can be anyone who is dear to you or who you have affection for in a certain way. Yeah. So let's carry on. Then a mendicant went up to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and told him what was going on. So the Buddha addressed a certain monk, "Please, monk, in my name, tell the mendicant Paguna of the top knot that the teacher summons him." "Yes, sir," that monk replied. He went to Paguna of the top knot and said to him, "Reverend Paguna, the teacher summons you." "Yes, Reverend," Paguna replied. He went to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and the Buddha said to him. So there you are, you get summoned by the Buddha, always a kind of scary prospect, but anyway, so what is the Buddha going to say? In this case, obviously, he may very well tell him off a little bit, yeah, so what happens then? "Is it really true, Paguna, that you were mixing overly closely together with the nuns? With so much so that if any mendicant criticizes those nuns in your presence, you get angry and upset and even instigate disciplinary proceedings. And if any mendicant criticizes you in those nuns' presence, they get angry and upset and even instigate disciplinary proceedings. Is that how much you are mixing overly close together with the nuns?" You notice the method of the Buddha is always to ask if it is true. Yeah, you always ask first. You don't assume anything. You don't start telling him off without asking if it is true. And if he denies it, that's the end of the story. But maybe in the presence of the Buddha, you are very careful about telling the truth. So what does he say? "Yes, sir." Yeah, it's hard to be dishonest in the presence of someone like the Buddha. You tend to be honest because the qualities of the Buddha are such that it's hard to lie in their presence. Paguna, are you not a gentleman who has gone forth from the lay life to homelessness? Yes, sir. As such, it is not appropriate for you to mix so closely with the nuns. So if anyone criticizes those nuns in your presence, you should give up any desires and thoughts of the lay life. If that happens, you should train like this. My mind will be unaffected. I will blurt out no bad words. I will remain full of compassion with a heart of love and no secret hate. That is how you should train. Yeah, so the problem is that the desires and thoughts of the lay life, well, these are obviously what is meant by this is like sensual thoughts, yeah, the kind of sensual that are usually kind of common in the world. And especially when you mix with someone of the opposite gender, then these things can arise quite easily. And so that's why you have to be careful. Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why obviously monks and nuns are in different monasteries, is to kind of avoid these kind of situations. And that goes back all the way to the time of the Buddha. And you know that you have gone too far if you become too kind of you kind of look after those nuns. Yeah, you become defensive. You defend those nuns in whatever way. And then you start saying bad things if someone else criticizes them. That's kind of how you can, one of the reasons you find out that there is some attachment or desire there for those people. So it's important to understand this is not just about nuns and monks, it's about all people in all kinds of situations. That we tend to get too close to somebody, and then when someone criticizes those people, then we blurt out bad words because of that. Instead, we should be full of compassion. When someone says something bad or criticizes somebody, we should have compassion all around. We should have compassion for the criticizer, for those who are criticized, and for oneself. Yeah, this is like just as we have been seeing now. It is the compassionate mind that is the right one. And that's what we should be having in these kind of situations. Very easy to go wrong, especially when we have attachments to people. Very easy to get upset if someone says negative things about those people who are close to us. So we have to be extra careful in those circumstances. So even if someone strikes those nuns with fists, stones, rods, and swords in your presence, or knives in your presence, you should give up any desires and thoughts of the lay life. If that happens, you should train like this. My mind will be unaffected. I will blurt out no bad words. I will remain full of compassion with a heart of love and no secret hate. That is how you should train. Let alone criticizing, yeah, but actually physically abusing. Even when someone is physically abused, you should not get angry. You should not have any ill will for those people. You should just realize that that person who does the abusing is blind. They don't know what they're doing. They are conditioned to do that. It is never right to get angry. Anger never helps in any kind of situation. Instead, you should think, we have a problem here. Yeah, these nuns are being abused by someone else. That is terrible. We don't want to have that kind of abuse. How can I find a solution to this? And the solution is not to get angry. The solution is usually somewhere else. Yeah, maybe you go to the person who is doing the abuse and you talk to them, or you go to their superior, or you go to the Buddha to ask for advice, or you tell the nuns better move somewhere else where this person is not, or whatever. Yeah, you find a solution, and usually the best way to find a solution is to have a clear mind, a mind that actually reflects carefully, a mind that is not biased. Anger is not going to help. Anger is always a negative thing, according to the Buddha Dhamma, and so you think about things wisely instead of being swayed by your emotions in such a negative sense. Yes, you can see how this is just an extension of what we have been talking about already. It's more of the same. It just gives a different angle on it. It's a different occasion, slightly different way of looking at things. So you don't say any bad words, and your mind remains unmoved by all of this. So if anyone criticizes you in your presence, you should give up any desires and thoughts of the lay life. If that happens, you should train like this. Again, my mind will be unaffected. I will blurt out no bad words. I will remain full of compassion with a heart of love and no secret hate. That is how you should train. So even if they criticize you, before they criticize maybe your people you are close to you, your loved ones, people you have affection and friendship with, and now it is about you yourself, criticizes you in your presence. Again, the same thing. You have compassion for someone who criticizes you. Isn't that interesting? So it's hard to do, but if often you know that you are a good person, often you know that you have good qualities, and when someone criticizes you, it's like whatever. There's no basis for criticizing me. How can you even get angry? It's almost like you are puzzled. Why do you want to criticize me? I'm doing good things. I'm living a good life. Listen. It's like, and this is kind of one of those beautiful things about living really well. You feel safe. You feel that all criticism is kind of irrelevant. It doesn't really matter, doesn't apply to you anyway. Or you listen carefully to what they have to say because you're open for new treasures to be opened up. And so you realize maybe they do have a point. Maybe there's something I can improve on. You want to improve. You want to be a better person. And for that reason, compassionate criticism that comes your way is something that you listen to. This is one of those things. Most of the time it will be irrelevant because most of the time other people have no idea what's going on. But occasionally they will say something that's interesting, and then that will open up a new avenue for leading an even better life than you're doing already. So Paguna, even if someone strikes you with fists, stones, rods and swords, you should give up any desires or thoughts of lay life. If that happens, you should train like this. My mind will be unaffected. I will blurt out no bad words. I will remain full of compassion with a heart of love and no secret hate. That is how you should train. There is a nice sutta. This is the I think it's a Chanavada Sutta. I think it's a Chanavada Sutta, one of the other ones. No, the Punnavada Sutta, Punnaka Uvada Sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya number 145 or something like that. And there is the monk Punna. Is it Punna? Punnaka? Punna? Anyway. And he goes to the Buddha and he says to the Buddha, I would like to go to the Sunaparanta country and live in the Sunaparanta country. And then the Buddha says, well, you know, Punna, that those people in the Sunaparanta country, they are really like barbarians. They are really harsh and rough, and the dogs there are really rough and harsh, and there's lots of dust and all kind of problems in the Sunaparanta country. This is like a border country far away. If you go there, they might treat you with really harsh words. What are you going to do? Well, if they treat me with harsh words, I'm going to think, wow, so lucky they don't strike me with a fist. But what if they do strike you with a fist? Oh, I'm going to say, so happy they don't throw rocks at me or clods of earth. But what if they do throw rocks at you and clods of earth? Wow, so lucky they don't kind of, hit me with a knife or kind of stab me with a knife. But what if they do stab with a knife? Oh, I'm going to think, so happy they didn't kill me. But what if they kill you? This is how you have to look at this. You have to take it all the way to the limit. And if you can deal with the limit, you can deal with anything. So what if they kill you? And then Punna says, well, if they kill me, then I will know that there have been other monastics who have been looking for the knife. I didn't even have to look for the knife. I just found it like that, and I was done with that. And so you don't have to look for anyone to kill you because you have actually someone just did it voluntarily, And yay, okay, no problem, because if they kill me, maybe Punna was an arahant already, so he kind of just didn't have any rebirth, everything was fine. And so he just kind of carries on. And then the Buddha said, okay, you are ready for the Sunaparanta country, You have got the right kind of attitude. If even death isn't a worry for you, then you are fine. So this is kind of similar kind of thing that you're seeing here, yeah? If someone, whatever people do, you never really get angry with them. Yeah, you can see how hard it is getting now. If someone strike you with a fist, are you going to have compassion for that person? Or are you going to get a bit upset, yeah? If someone takes a rod and starts whacking you, whack, whack, yeah? Are you going to just, what are you going to do? This is getting quite challenging. And the challenge gets harder the further into the sutta we get, until we get to the simile of the sword, of the saw. That is where the kind of the highest challenge, so to speak. But this is what we're dealing with here. So, let's move on. Then the Buddha said to the mendicants, "Mendicants, I used to be satisfied with the mendicants. Once I addressed them, I eat my food in 1 sitting per day. Doing so, I find that I'm healthy, well and nimble, strong and living comfortably. You too should eat your food in 1 sitting per day. Doing so, you will find that you are healthy, well, nimble, strong and living comfortably." I didn't have to keep on instructing those mendicants. I just had to prompt their mindfulness. In other words, to remind them. Suppose a chariot stood harnessed to thoroughbreds at a level crossroads, with a goad ready. Then a deft horse trainer, a master charioteer, might mount the chariot, taking the reins in his right hand and the goad in the left. He'd drive out and back wherever he wishes, whenever he wishes. In the same way, I didn't have to keep on instructing those mendicants. I just had to prompt their mindfulness. Yeah? So you instruct people and they just follow along, just like a well-trained horses. You just do what you are told to do and you carry on because you have faith in the Buddha and you do what is right. And of course, over time, things decline, and then people don't do what is right anymore. So mendicants, you should give up what is unskillful and devote yourself to skillful qualities. In this way, you will achieve growth, improvement, and maturity in this teaching and training. So you should give up what's unskillful and devote yourself to the skillful. This is what the Dhamma is all about. The whole Buddhist path can be summarized in this way. This is all we really have to do. And if we do this in the right way, then growth and improvement is the result of that. Giving up the unskillful, developing the skillful. If you keep on doing this, and eventually you will achieve Nibbana, because that's what Nibbana is. It's a continuous movement in that direction. And it's very hard to really understand what Nibbana is. It's very hard to understand how it is possible to give up all unskillful qualities. It may seem impossible. I remember when I was, going back home, visiting my parents, and I said to my father, it is possible to give up all anger. He said, nonsense, can't be done. That's what he said. Later on, he kind of became more open to it. But in the beginning, he didn't want to listen to me about those kind of things because it seems almost impossible. How can you give up all irritation and anger? It's very, very hard to understand, especially when people come with knives and clods of earth and they throw it at you. How can you not get a bit upset in that kind of situation? So the point of the Dhamma is you do one step at a time. And for every step you do, you get a little bit better. And gradually you start to open up the possibility that maybe it is possible to overcome this completely. Every step on the path gives you one step closer, moving in that kind of direction. And that is how it opens up, the possibility actually arises. So instead of thinking too much about the end result, which may seem very far away, just move stage by stage and see how this process goes by itself. Suppose that not far from a town or village there was a large grove of sal trees that were choked with castor oil weeds. Then along comes a person who wants to help and protect and nurture that grove. They will cut down the crooked sal saplings that were robbing the sap and throw them out. They would clean up the interior of the grove and properly care for the straight, well-formed sal saplings. In the same way, in due course, that sal grove would grow, increase, and mature. Yeah, this is the idea of getting rid of the defilements. Yeah, you cut away all the crooked saplings, and when you do that, the good qualities kind of come about. It's interesting, sometimes you can see how much of the practice of metta is actually overcome the opposite. Yeah, we're dealing with anger, dealing with harmfulness, dealing with all this negative quality, the harshness in life. And as we take those away, it's like the metta almost comes by itself. It arises due to the removal of those crooked saplings. Remove the crooked saplings, remove the castor oil weeds. I have no idea what castor oil weeds are, but anyway, I guess they are bad. Yeah, that's kind of why they're there. So remove those castor oil weeds, and then those defilements are removed. The trees grow up. The good qualities of the mind emerge as a consequence. So, in the same way, mendicants, you too should give up what's unskillful and devote yourself to skillful qualities. In this way, you will achieve growth, improvement, and maturity in this teaching and training. Teaching and training is Dhamma Vinaya. Teaching, training, and teaching discipline, sometimes translated here. So now we come to another little story. We have Once Upon a Time. Yeah, so we're getting to another fairy tale. So I hope you're ready for a fairy tale. Puba Butang is the Bhuta Pubang is the Pali word. It means formerly existed or something like that. So Once Upon a Time is a nice translation, I reckon. So once upon a time, mendicants, right here in Savatthi, there was a housewife named Vedehika. She had this good reputation. The housewife Vedehika is sweet, even-tempered, and calm. Now Vedehika had a bonded maid named Kali, who was skilled, tireless, and well-organized in her work. So Kali is a little bit of an unfortunate name, because Kali is one of the famous Hindu goddesses, this kind of really scary goddesses. Have you seen Kali in the Hindu temples, often with big fangs and kind of blood dripping, all these kind of things? That's Kali for you. So I'm not sure if this maid was a bit dodgy. We're talking about people being like devils. I think Kali comes very close. So Kali was... But actually this Kali was a very good one, skilled and tireless and well organized. But Kali in the suttas also has this idea of a dice. You throw a pair of dice, and then that can be unlucky or lucky, because very often dice is used for playing games, and you can have a good outcome or a bad outcome. And so Kali has this ambiguous name. On the one hand, it's kind of the Hindu name for a bad gods, but it also has this ambiguity to it. You throw the dice, and you don't know whether the outcome is going to be good or bad. So be very careful with who your servants are, your maids are. Is that true? Sometimes you have a good maid, you have a bad maid. You don't know what the maids are going to be like when you have them in your house. So you never know. It's like throwing dice sometimes. And this lady Vedehika, she also wasn't really sure what was going on, with this maid Kali. This Kali was very, very clever, very cunning. And so let's see what Kali does with Vedehika. So Vedehika starts out with this nice reputation, but maybe she does not end up with a good reputation. So let's see what happens. Then Kali thought, my mistress has a good reputation as being sweet, even-tempered, and calm. But does she actually have anger in her, or just not show it? Or does she have no anger? Or is it just because my work is well organized that she doesn't show anger, even though she still has it inside? Why don't I test my mistress? Oh, that's careful. That's scary. So This doesn't mean we should go around testing each other. Yeah, it's not such a good idea to go around testing each other. Often we kind of make bad karma by all of this testing. But sometimes it can be useful. Yeah, sometimes you might get someone who's really conceited. They go around thinking they're an arahant or a stream enter. And so you test them a little bit. Yeah, you're some kind of stream enter. And then they get angry because you're not supposed to say that to them. And then you know, okay, maybe not stream enter after all, or anagami or something like that. So sometimes that is done, yeah, and especially when people get conceited, you have to bring them back down to earth again, yeah, and that's kind of a nice thing to do. So I would be careful with testing people, yeah. So this is just a simile. It's not actually a call to how we should live and what we should be doing. Yeah. So what happens? So Kali got up during the day. Yeah, you're supposed to get up early in the morning. Usually the maid is supposed to get up before the mistress to kind of get things ready in the house or whatever. Instead, she gets up during the day. Vedeka said to her, "What the hell, Kali?" Well, this is Bhante Sujato translation. The Pali is not quite like that. This is some idea to that. And Kali says, "What is it, madam? You are getting up in the day. What is up with you, girl?" "Nothing, madam." "Nothing's up, you bad girl, but you get up in the day." Angry and upset, she scowled. She showed kind of a bad facial expression. Yeah, wow, you bad girl. So what does Kali do? Oh, then Kali thought, my mistress actually has anger in her and just doesn't show it. It's not that she has no anger. It's just because my work is well organized that she doesn't show anger, even though she still has it inside. Why don't I test my mistress further? Oh, he's living dangerously, this maid. Well, she's already showing anger. It's kind of, okay. So let's see what happens then. So Kali got up even later in the day. Vedeka said to her, what the hell, Kali? What is it, madam? You are getting up even later in the day. What's up with you, girl? Nothing, madam. Nothing's up, you bad girl. And you get up even later in the day. Angry and upset, she blurted out angry words. Yeah, this is exactly what the Buddha said we should not be doing, so that you can see why this simile is relevant here. But does that mean that Kali is now happy? Oh no, not really. Then Kali thought, my mistress actually has anger in her and just doesn't show it. It is not that she has no anger. It is just because my work is well organized that it doesn't show anger, even though she still has it inside. Why don't I test my mistress even further? She is asking for trouble, right? Now she's kind of going too far. She has already kind of proven her point. But anyway, so Kali gets up even later in the day. Vedeka said to her, what the hell, Kali? What is it, madam? You are getting up even later in the day. What's up with you, girl? Nothing, madam. Nothing up with you, bad girl, but you get even later in the day, angry and upset. She grabbed a rolling pin and hit Kali on the head, cracking it open. Ooh, bad idea. So, there you are. Yeah, now, what happens then? Then Kali, with blood pouring from her cracked skull, denounced her mistress to the neighbors. See, ladies, what the sweet one did. See what the even-tempered one did. See what the calm one did. How on earth can she grab a rolling pin and hit her only maid on the head, cracking it open, just for getting up late? Then after some time the housewife Vedeka got a bad reputation. The housewife Vedeka is fierce, ill-tempered, and not calm at all. So, yeah, the idea here is that being even-tempered, we'll see this in a second, being even-tempered, being calm, is difficult. Yeah, it's not just about being even-tempered when things go well. It's about being even-tempered when things go difficult, go harder. Yeah. So when I am here at the BGF, everything is so easy for me. No wonder I am kind of nice. Yeah. Maybe I seem like a nice person. You have no idea what I'm like when things get difficult. Yeah. Maybe I kind of get really harsh and difficult. Yeah, it's possible. You don't know me that well. So just kind of warning you. Yeah. I'm not saying you should test me, I'm just warning you, that's all. So we are getting close to lunch. Let's have a few more questions and answers if you wish. So please fire away.
Good morning, Ajahn.
Good morning.
I have a question about the Abhidhamma.
Please. It's not exactly on topic, but anyway, that's okay. You can, because there's nothing else going on, so that's fine. Yeah.
Is it important or useful or trustworthy to learn it?
Okay, so this is a very kind of common question because in certain parts of Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, the Abhidhamma is elevated as being really, really important. And one of the things that you hear is that the Abhidhamma is the ultimate expression of the Dhamma, the highest expression of the Dhamma. And the suttas are just like conventional expression of the Dhamma, whereas the Abhidhamma is the ultimate expression of the Dhamma. But actually, the truth is it's the other way around. The suttas are the highest expression, and the Abhidhamma are really just commentaries on the suttas. They are a way of interpreting and understanding the Dhamma. But the highest expression is the word of the Buddha. Yeah, this is what the Buddha himself says. You should follow the word of the Buddha. You shouldn't add to it or subtract from it. Interpretation is inevitable, and so we should regard the Abhidhamma as an interpretation or understanding of the suttas. So is it helpful? Well, it's like all commentaries. I discussed the commentaries the other day. You asked about the commentaries the other day. Now you ask about the Abhidhamma, which is good. But it should be regarded basically in the same way as the commentaries. Can they shed some light on the suttas? Can they help us to understand it? So the answer is sometimes maybe it can. Sometimes they can give us some insight. And sometimes it may also lead us astray. Sometimes it may kind of go in the wrong direction a little bit as well. So don't make the Abhidhamma primary. Don't make the Abhidhamma the ultimate truth, and then the sutta is like the conventional truth, because then you're getting it the wrong way around. The suttas should be primary. So you learn the Abhidhamma to shed light on the suttas, not the other way around, that the Abhidhamma becomes first. And so this means that you may spend, if you really want to, if you're really excited by the Abhidhamma, then spend a little bit of time on it to see what's there, so you have a feeling for what's going on maybe. But don't go on endless Abhidhamma courses and learn it in great detail, because honestly, I don't think it is very helpful. I think it is mostly a distraction. Most of the hard work is about learning to be kind. It's about simple things. Yeah, it's not about learning mind moments and how they, arise according to the Patana, which is the 7th book of the Abhidhamma, which is kind of the biggest book ever created in the universe. Apparently, they say that if you print out the Patana, this last book of the Abhidhamma, fully, then the binding, the back of the book, would stretch for about 1,000 kilometers. Yeah, that's kind of how big it is if you kind of print out the whole thing and you put in all the dots that are in there. So it's like this amazing creation of the human mind, but it doesn't really kind of help us all that much in understanding what's going on. So look at it a little bit, but don't make too much out of it, just like the commentaries, yeah? Now, one of the important things to know about the Abhidhamma is that it is very specific to the various schools. So the Theravada Abhidhamma is different from the Abhidhamma of the Sarvastivadins, another school of Buddhism, or the Dharmaguptakas. Those Abhidhammas still exist in Chinese translation, the Middle Chinese from the 1,500 years ago, they exist there. And if you compare the various Abhidhammas, they are very different. And what that means is that the Abhidhammas were created in the sectarian period, when the sects had already arisen. They do not come from the Buddha. Yeah, that is really important. Some of the aspects of the Abhidhamma may go back to the time of the Buddha because there is some commonalities between the different Abhidhammas, but generally they do not. And if they don't come from the Buddha, where do they come from? They come from anonymous people. We don't know who wrote the Abhidhamma. And because we don't know, how can we trust it? How can we take this as, being the final and ultimate expression of the Dhamma when we have no idea where it actually even arises from? Of course, if you ask a traditional Theravadan where the Abhidhamma comes from, they will say it was taught by the Buddha to his mother in the heavenly realm. And I always think, I feel really sorry for that mother who had to listen to the Abhidhamma. Yeah, that's the first kind of sutta she got was the Abhidhamma. Well, poor mother, it's kind of really boring. Have you tried reading the Abhidhamma? It's not all that interesting. And so I think that's obviously just an excuse. Yeah, why would the Buddha teach it to her mother in the heavenly realm? First of all, it sounds like an excuse to me, and because it sounds like an excuse, it probably is an excuse. Especially when you understand that the way the Abhidhamma is phrased, the content, the words that are used, the way the language is used, is very different from that of the suttas. It doesn't come from the same time period. If you think about literature, say in the English language, in the English language you have literature like Shakespeare, for example, he was around in the early 17th century, something like that. And then you go to later literature, like say Dickens. These are two of the most famous kind of writers in English. The Dickens was in the 19th century, and Shakespeare was in the 17th century. And if you compare the writing style, you will notice it is quite different. And everyone knows by looking at the language that this was not written at the same time. Everyone knows that Shakespeare was prior to Dickens. We know that from the way the language works, the vocabulary that is used, the way it is expressed, the grammar, all of these kind of things. In exactly the same way, we can know from the language that the Abhidhamma was later than the suttas. It is equally obvious. The later ideas, new vocabulary, new structure, new way of expressing things. It's kind of simple. If you use common sense, it's kind of obvious. But because the Theravada mythology is so strong, we tend to believe in things that are not really realistic. And that's what's going on with the Abhidhamma. In the Abhidhamma, the most interesting part is maybe what I mentioned earlier, the Katavatu. The Katavatu is maybe that's the seventh book. I can't remember now the sequence of books anymore. Maybe that's the seventh one. Patana is number 6, maybe. But and that because that is the discussion between the various schools, and you get some insight into the discussion between the various schools in ancient India, how they would discuss about things, and then you can see some of the viewpoints of Theravada versus the viewpoints of Sarvastivada, Dharmaguptaka, Sutrantakas, Mahasangikas, and various other schools. You can see that, and that can be eye-opening and interesting. Sometimes the Abhidhamma can be. There are some aspects that I have to admit are interesting, especially in the Vibhanga. The Vibhanga is the second book of the Abhidhamma, and it has the Sutanta Bhajaniya and the Abhidhamma Bhajaniya, the analysis according to the suttas, analysis according to Abhidhamma. And when you compare that, you can kind of get a feeling for the distinction between the two, and you can see how the suttas were understood at that early time, etc. So it's not entirely without interest, but a lot of the Abhidhamma that is taught, coming from like the Abhidhammata Sangaha, which is a compendium on the Abhidhamma, is more about mind moments and these kind of things. And that part of the Abhidhamma I don't think is very interesting, to be honest. Anyway, that's my perspective on that. And many Theravadins will disagree, but that's still my perspective, even if they disagree. So there you are.
Following up on her questions, other than the last thought, mind moment, and the Antara Bhava, is there any other prominent points that Abhidhamma contradicts with the Sutta Pitaka?
Is there any prominent points that it contradicts with the Sutta Pitaka? I think one of the problems with the Abhidhamma is that it tries to make a complete classification of phenomena. So this is the kind of the idea of the Dhammasangani. Dhammasangani literally means the enumeration of dhammas, the enumeration of qualities. So you just set up this scheme of 92 mental qualities and 26 or 28 or whatever it is physical qualities, and you try to make this exhaustive enumeration of things as if that's possible to do. And because it is an exhaustive enumeration, it means that each quality has to be given a very clear definition. This is called the sabhava, the existent nature of that quality. So every quality has an existent nature. It becomes like, so for example, piti is one quality, right? And that's enumerated in the Abhidhamma, in the Dhammasangani. It's as if piti is always the same. It is like it is permanent, it is always the same quality. And so starting to give permanence and a certain absolute reality to certain qualities, as if reality can be explained in this particular way. And so that whole project was actually then criticized by other Abhidhammas of other schools. I think maybe, I can't remember now which school criticized that. Maybe it was I don't think the Sarvastivadins, because they were also into kind of permanent ideas, but it was criticized as almost a kind of sneaking in an atta into a sense of self, into the Buddhism, because these ideas became more like permanent and real entities rather than changeable things that are always moving around. Can you really pin down piti as one specific, always identical quality? Or is piti something that is changing all the time? If you look at one's own experience of these things, you will see that piti, almost all mental phenomena, are always changing, moving around. The idea that you can pin them down to one specific thing seems like, to me anyway, like a kind of overreach. And so Abhidhamma is veering towards eternalism, veering towards things having specific qualities that are always the same. This is the idea of sabhava, inherent quality of a certain thing here. So this is one problem with it. There's a momentariness, and then there's the idea of specifying qualities in this way here. This is the developed Abhidhamma. Abhidhamma Pitaka is one thing, but usually when we talk about Abhidhamma, we don't just mean the Abhidhamma Pitaka, we mean kind of the entire Abhidhamma literature, including the commentaries, because this is where these things like sabhava is actually explained as to the meaning here. So that is one other way in which it is problematic. And I think that there probably are more ways as well. At the moment, we're actually running out of time anyway, so I should stop there. But so this is kind of where you have to be careful, because I think you are moving towards philosophy. You're moving towards trying to fill in all the gaps. But should all the gaps be filled in? Maybe the point of the Buddha is not to fill in those gaps. Maybe filling those gaps is actually dangerous, because you're kind of going into overreach and you're trying to create a picture which goes away from the pragmatic approach of the Buddha, which is to overcome suffering, towards a philosophical approach, which is the description of reality. What are we trying to do? Overcome suffering or to describe reality? It is not about describing reality, it's about overcoming suffering, and we need to remember that. Anyway, let's have lunch, everyone, and we'll see you back again at 1 o'clock.